Anyat Kozani Hatiadi, Yayadi, Eyadi, Tutili. Dana Khilsek Yukhatu Wasam. Suklahadi Ayakhat, Hayash, the Hitan Ayakhat, Deki Nayadi Hatsiti, Tagwan Tanda Chanayakhat. Thank you, everyone, our most honored guests, for being here today. It's good to see each and every one of you. We are the New Tlane Dancers. I introduced myself very briefly. My Tlingit name is Dana Khilsek, but everybody can call me Chuck if you want. I'm of the Raven Koho clan of Sitka. I'm the child of a high my father's people today. It's good to see each and every one of you. I'm a proud descendant of the Haida Nation. We are the New Tlane Dancers, and I'm also the grandchild of the Kagwantan. We are going to entertain you for a little bit today. We hope that you enjoy what you are going to be seeing today. Our first song that we've entered in on is what we call the Koho entrance song. This next song that we are going to be doing for you is a men's style song. It belongs to the Deshitan of Angoon. Their ancestor's name was Gitwain. Gitwain, Kayacha, Dawanaiti, Dawanaiti, Coop. We're going to have our ladies come out front at this time to sing you a ladies' love song. This was composed by one of my ancestors from the Tluknakhadi Koho clan. This was composed by our great uncle James Howard, Shtuwa.
Good afternoon. At this time, we're going to take a little bit of time here. This year, Dasa, our mentor and our leader, approached me about getting the group ready this year. She keeps telling us this is going to be her last celebration, although we hope it isn't, but we wanted to do something really special for her this year. So at this point, I'm going to call Chuck Miller and Lillian Young up here with me. When she discussed this, us three got together and we asked Chuck if he would compose a song on behalf of Dasa. Chuck pulled it together and he composed a beautiful song for her that we're going to be doing after we acknowledge her. So Lillian and I were talking, and Lil wanted the song to be unique for her. So as Chuck was composing it, we discussed what we'll be doing, and you'll see it in our performance. So at this point, I'm going to let Chuck talk to you guys about this song and explain the meaning behind it. Ganesh for allowing me to talk about this part, and I'll let Chuck talk.
Ganesh, it was an extreme honor to be approached by my clan sisters here on behalf of our dance group to compose this song for Dasa. This is a complete surprise to her. I told her, I said, Mom, because she's my mom in the clan, I said, Mom, hey, we need your help. I threw my little Sunny boys under the bus. I said, the Marx Brothers, they need help with the song. They need the words to it. Can you help me? She says, oh, okay. What words do they need? So I told her, and she said, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. So she says, Iish tu katangi tuwa ach. Your father's teachings are heard through your words. This is in reference to her late father, Charlie Joseph Sr. The second verse, Shatsin hajitawati ikusachani kiks adi ka tluknachadi yatke. Your love for all of us has strengthened us all.
Sealaska is an Alaska Native corporation. Through diligent care for resources and careful reinvestment, Sealaska supports shareholders for the long term, serving this generation and the next. Twice a year, Sealaska makes distributions to shareholders, filling up their baskets with payments from three sources: business operations, the Marjorie V. Young Shareholder Permanent Fund, and ANCSA Section 7I payments. Sealaska operations generate annual earnings that are utilized for shareholder distributions and reinvestment for growth. Reinvestment has been key to growing operations and increasing shareholder career opportunities. The Marjorie V. Young Shareholder Permanent Fund is invested to provide stability to distributions. Its payouts are based on a % of its value. Some shareholders receive money from ANCSA Section 7I payments. This is a share of resource revenue from ANCs across Alaska. This money comes from activities like timber harvest and the production of oil and zinc. Sealaska has also created endowment funds to support elder benefits, language revitalization, and scholarships. Sealaska's vision is to support the current generation and traditional communities while ensuring a bright future for generations to come.
Welcome. Welcome, shareholders. Welcome all to a Q&A with the board and an update of where we're at in the year. My name is Morgan Howard. I'm Tekwedi. I'm originally from Yakutat, grew up in Yakutat and Kodiak. But now I've been living here in the land of the Duwamish in Snoqualmie, Kirkland, Washington. I want to welcome all shareholders to this call. I'll be joined here in this hour from other directors. We're going to hear from Vicky Sobolov. She's going to talk to us about the November meeting we just had as an update. We're also going to hear from Nicole Hollingstad. She's going to do a Q&A for you. So think of those questions now. And we'll have Anthony Malott, our CEO, to go a little deeper dive on distributions, which will be a topic today. We'll also hear from Log and I, who will close up the meeting, another director on the board. We have today, we're going to talk about distributions and dividends, and just want to give a real brief overview before we go into it. What is Sealaska? Sealaska is your Southeast Regional Native Corporation that came through ANCSA to be the vehicle that holds title to our ancestral land, right? And with that land, hopefully we can provide benefits. Now, we look at our impact that's making a difference in the lives of shareholders. And in the big picture, dividends is one of the ways we do that. It is definitely the most we contribute monetarily in regards to providing benefits to shareholders, but it's definitely not the full picture. As Sealaska has progressed, and now we're 50 years old, we've looked at more and different ways to make an impact. And today we've stood up entities that you all know and love, like Sealaska Heritage Institute and Spruce Root, which helps with economic development in all of our communities. And these are different ways that we hope to do our job, which is helping out all of you. We also have death burial benefits. We have scholarships. We have a very successful internship program, which recently started with externships. And these are many of the ways that we do that. I just wanted to set that framework, and then we can talk deeper about dividends and distributions, which the board has a mission of creating stable, consistent, long-term growing dividends. That is the goal of the board. And we know it is one of the priorities when we do the surveys. It is definitely up there in the top 5. It is one of the priorities, and I'm sure will always be, but it's not the top priority. So we have to consider all of the shareholders' wants and needs when we look at Sealaska. Well, great. That's a real quick overview for us to get into what we're talking about today. Next, I'm going to hand it off to Vicky Sobolov. Take it away, Vicky.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today, and I'm going to give the board meeting overview for November. The November meeting is part of our quarterly meeting cycle at Sealaska. We meet to review business performance and community outreach each quarter. The November focus is also the distribution. This year, the distribution was approved at the November meeting, as you know, and we are meeting here today to discuss that distribution and answer questions. We also hear from our affiliate organizations, Spruce Root, Sealaska Heritage, and we get updates on the businesses that they are working on. Ha'ani is Sealaska's natural resources arm, and we receive updates from Ha'ani on their work managing the lands of Sealaska Corporation. And at the quarterly meetings, we also receive board committee reports, and we hear from the Shareholder Participation Committee members. That is also the opportunity that Sealaska has to go over Sealaska Heritage's report from their president, and we are able to hear specific information about the donations that they have been able to leverage from Sealaska's annual contribution. And we are able to participate with our board youth advisors and have them actively participate in our meetings and give us their views on the operations of Sealaska and be able to participate with us. We have been having community outreach meetings, and we are going to be having meetings coming up very soon in Los Angeles. The meeting is scheduled for November 11th, and in Sacramento, a meeting on November 12th. These meetings are important because they are a direct response to shareholder survey results where they wanted to see more meetings outside of Juneau and the larger areas that Sealaska normally goes to. So in LA, we have over 600 shareholders, and we have recently came from Phoenix, where we had over 400 shareholders, and we had a very good meeting there. And the shareholders who are in those locations have an overwhelmingly positive response to the board members coming, and in particular, the cultural workshops that we have been providing. So that is kind of an update of our November meeting, and we do have Anthony here on board to discuss more specifics about the distribution that has been announced. So at this point, I will go ahead and turn it over to Anthony. Thank you.
Guna cheese, Vicky. Guna cheese to all the shareholders who have joined us. I believe it's the count is over 100 right now, so we always get a nice turnout for these events. I believe they are recorded, and if you know of anybody that didn't get a chance to attend, you can point them to My Sealaska, where I believe we have the recordings. Dixie and others can confirm that in the chat for me. But for this distribution, we have a couple of pieces of information that have been sent out to shareholders, and that is the core detail that you should all have. We have the announcement that was sent out on the day of the board approval last Thursday. And then we had a more detailed announcement that went out the following day, highlighting, very similar to the video, just some extra detail to the different sources of dividends and distributions that our shareholders see. And so this is effectively the in-person chance to even dive in a bit deeper on the distribution. But I hope if, given the interest in the distribution, I hope those two pieces of information were useful. And again, the video that we saw at the beginning highlighted 3 unique sources of dividends and distributions to our shareholders. The only slight difficulty in going through the detail is we also have different share classes, and our different share classes see different portions of the distribution. But I hope this table allows me to walk through this and give all of our shareholders as clear a picture of the dividends that they receive as possible. So of our original shareholders in broad terms were either urban or at-large shareholders, or they were village shareholders. And this is for the original class. This last column is for the newer shareholder classes, our descendant shareholder class, our left out shareholder class, and the elders extra shares that are given to our original shareholders once they turn $65 or 65 years old. Thinking of dollars too much here. So let's walk down, and in most instances, our shareholders know what share class they are, but My Sealaska also does a really good description and confirmation of your share class as well. So if you're an original shareholder and you're classified as urban and at large, you see directly to you 2 payments. One that comes from the Sealaska Shareholder Settlement Trust, And that amount is the combination of the permanent fund, which was $1.01 per share, and the operations dividend, which was $1.48 per share. So let's just assume the average shareholder has 100 shares. They would receive $249 from the Sea Alaska Shareholder Settlement Trust. That change was created just a couple of years ago. And the reason why is that the Shareholder Settlement Trust offers our shareholders a benefit of that $249 being non-taxable to our shareholders. So it's a positive change to have the dividends amount coming from the settlement trust. We can't, the structure of the settlement trust does not allow us to create the same tax savings for the 7J portion. And so we've had shareholders ask, why do I get two different checks? One, we try and maximize the tax benefit. So the settlement trust allows us to send the $249 tax-free, but unfortunately we can't send the 7J $3.90 per share tax-free. So that amount comes directly from Sea Alaska Corporation. So our urban and at-large shareholders see two checks, $249 from the settlement trust, $390 from the directly from Sea Alaska Corporation. If you are an original shareholder and you're a village class shareholder, you will see the $249 from the settlement trust, the Sea Alaska Shareholder Settlement Trust. The $3.90 7J goes directly to your village corporation. And it depends on whether your village corporation passes through that amount on whether you will see that. But every village corp also gets the $3.90, whether it's paid through the village corp or directly as a pass-through back from the village corp to the village shareholders. So original shareholders should see the $6.39 per share from this particular distribution. Now, the biggest difference with the newer share classes, the descendants, left outs, and elder share classes, is that they do not receive the 7J portion. They receive the permanent fund and operations amount, and they also see that amount directly from the Sea Alaska Shareholder Settlement Trust. So our descendants, left outs, and the elder class shares get $2.49 per share. If you have 100 shares, that's $249. That is not the only amount an elder receives when you see this elder share class. That's the amount they get from their elder share class. Most of our elders still hold their original shares as well. So they see both the distribution amounts from their original shares plus this extra elders share class. And that was put in place at the time that we passed the descendant vote. And the reasoning was we did not want the dilution that we expected from opening the rolls to our descendants to affect our elder shareholders. And good to say that that share class has limited the dilution that our elders are seeing from our descendant, the new descendant shareholders. So hopefully I walked through that, gave enough detail. I want to highlight that this was just one of two dividends that we send out. We do a spring distribution in April and the fall distribution in November. So a lot of the times we look at the total dollar amount that our shareholders see. And so if you look at the combination of both the spring distribution and the fall distribution, and This is just for the permanent fund and our operations dividend. And I'll explain why we look at this amount separately from the 7J amount. The main reason being, these are the amounts that we have direct control over. Growth in our investment funds and growth in our operations grow the dividend amounts that our shareholders see in broad terms. Both of these distributions, the permanent fund and the operations dividend, have a stabilizing factor in it. The fact that they look back, they average the last 5 years within their calculation to create some stability in the distribution amount. But what we've been highlighting to shareholders over the last few years is the growth in income that we have created from both our growth in operations and our carbon income sources has considerably increased the dividend amount on an annual basis that our shareholders see. So you see back in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14 time period, we were under 6 million in total dividends paid to our shareholders. We've increased that amount, hitting $20 million in dividends to our shareholders in 2022. We saw a decrease in 2023, and the main reason for that is the 5-year averaging. 2018 was a significant net income year. We had more than 65 million in net income in 2018. And when large years like that fall out of the 5-year averaging, we sometimes do see declines like this. What we hope the shareholders feel is that the decline is not back towards the lower amounts that we used to distribute. The amounts that are being distributed are still at very high levels, $17 million in dividends paid out in 2023. And we expect the total dividend amount to stay at these high levels as the large carbon income years that we received in 2018 through 2021, as those fall out of the calculation. What we are planning is that our third carbon project and additional growth in our operating income will help limit the effect of those large carbon income years falling out of the calculation. So as Morgan said at the beginning, we strive to create as stable and growing a dividend as possible, but in any given year, the 5-year calculation can be affected by the year that falls out and the new year that comes into the calculation. But overall, it's a positive trend, and shareholders are seeing much larger dividend amounts than they did in previous decades, I would say. So we have specifically heard a lot of questions about the 7J distribution, because the 7J distribution was very large in the spring. It was $17.73 in the spring. And again, that's paid to directly to urban and at-large shareholders, and then to our village corps. And this distribution had a fall in the 7J amount to $3.90. So we want to highlight to our shareholders that one, the 7I, 7J portion of the distribution falls out of our control. It comes from the revenue sharing that all ANCs, both the regional corps and the village corps, receive from natural resource wealth from ANCSA lands. And so these amounts, these per share amounts in broad terms come from two sources. NANA has the Red Dog mine. And NANA receives royalty payments from the profits of that mine. The ups and downs, and I have a couple of additional slides before I end. The ups and downs really come from the fact that commodity prices go up and down with high volatility. And so again, we don't control what this dollar amount is. And in most instances, the companies that the regional corps that do create the 7I, they don't even have that much control over the income because it's driven by these commodity prices. The other source is Arctic Slope Regional Corp. They get royalty rights from oil profits from their lands. And I'll just highlight again, we've seen our shareholders, our urban and at-large shareholders, our village corps have seen large swings in 7J in the past. This recent one may be the largest swing we've witnessed, but we've seen large swings again from over $10 to under $2, from close to $16 back to under $10. And in the recent time period, we saw the big 7J swing from 1770 in the spring to 390 here. I'll just some extra detail. You see, these are zinc prices. And so the Red Dog mine can have steady production, but the profits from that mine go up and down based off of highly volatile commodity prices. And you see peaks, you see valleys. This is just the nature of 7J. And really quickly, everybody is probably more familiar with the peaks and valleys we see in oil prices because we all have to put gas in our car. Sometimes there's high gas and oil prices, and sometimes there's low gas and oil prices. And that is why we see the volatility in our 7J portion of the distribution. And we will continue to see volatility in the 7J portion of our distribution. So I think I've dove into enough detail. Again, it's supposed to be additive to the information that we've sent out to date. I think the last detail that we provided in the shareholder newsletter format was very good. And if you haven't read that piece, go back to that. It adds additional detail. And hopefully now we can dive into, I believe, some Q&A that offers another chance for our shareholders to understand our dividend and distribution structure a bit better.
Thank you so much, Anthony. We appreciate, as always, your clear explanations and the chance that you have to be here live with shareholders to have this conversation. And I know that we'll be turning to you now as we move into our question and answer portion of today's session. It's great that we've got a lot of time reserved and set aside for these questions. We've had plenty coming in on the live chat. And I think since we talked a little bit about 7I and 7J, we'll stick on that topic for just a quick first question. And can you please reiterate again the difference between INGSA Section 7I and 7J monies?
Thank you. That's a good question. So the 7I is the total amount paid to a corporation, to the regional corporations. And so if we receive 10 million in 7I from NANA, half of that amount is retained at Sea Alaska, and it becomes an income source for us. The other half is classified as 7J, and that's the distribution that goes to our urban and at-large shareholders and our village corps. So those are the two different amounts. The 7I is the total, and the 7J is the half that gets directly distributed. I will say that the 7I we retain also gets paid out through our operating income source as well. So shareholders see the benefit of the 7I income through both the 7J payment and our operating income.
Okay, well, we hope that that helps answer Leslie Hayward's question that came in about the difference between 7I and 7J. those payments to, some go directly to the shareholders, as Anthony described, and some, the 7J goes to the village corporations to use as they determine best. So we've got another question regarding some of our businesses, our seafood and contracting businesses. But before I ask the question that Brad Fletch posed to us, I just want to give a really exciting reminder to our shareholders about Sea Alaska's family of businesses that are focusing on ocean health. We have an entire arm of companies within our Wuchine family of operations that are being developed, grown, and adapted to challenges for renewable energy, both in North America, but particularly in Europe. And our goal with these ocean health and renewable energy companies is to make them so good at what they do and so competitive on the global stage that they become the go-to companies for this kind of work, that it's not even necessarily a competitive quoting situation or reliant upon a sole source 8A contract. We're simply so good at what we do in this industry that we become the partner that is sought after for this type of work. And I'm just going to give one quick example because it is very exciting to know that one of Sea Alaska's companies, Seas Geosciences, was recently selected by an Italian company to do a very large Mediterranean wind farm project off the coast of Italy. And that's a job under which Sea Alaska's company was really the only qualified global company with the technical skills to do this work. And I just think that that's such an exciting development in how we approach our operations, their competitiveness, just being so good at what you do that you are the sought out partner. So I just wanted to share with our shareholders, that focus and growth on Sea Alaska's ocean health companies. And now, Anthony, if we can turn to you just for a quick update on both any seafood business activities and government contracting work so far this year.
Great, thank you. Yes, very, very excited about the growth in both business lines within the Wuchine platform, as Director Hollingstad mentioned. When we went through the spring community meetings, we highlighted that in 2022, the seafood platform did have a more difficult year, given the inflation that we all witnessed in 2022. Happy to say in 2023, not only are they recovering, the seafood platform, not only are they recovering from the inflation difficulty of 2022, they have also won a lot of new business. And so both their EBITDA or cash flow and their net income are increasing in 2023. And in 2024, we expect that to continue to grow and be above even our earlier expectations. So excited about the seafood platform. Their focus of high quality, sustainably sourced seafood from around the world that's both healthy and good for our oceans is leading to retailers wanting to work with our platform and offering more of our seafood to consumers in the UK. We have more programs starting in the US, and we'll have exciting updates on the seafood platform as we move throughout next year. The contracting side as well, we've highlighted the work of the offshore wind development that leads to the need for the geotechnical services of drilling into the seafloor bed and understanding the geotechnical capacity of the seafloor bed to hold the anchors required for these offshore wind developments, and to do it in a manner that confirms the safety of both the seafloor bed and marine species around the development. We also do up to 30,000 drillings just to define where the cable should be laid from the offshore development to the on-land source, energy source. And so it's a lot of work. Just a single offshore development is a significant project for us. And because of the expertise that we are becoming known for, we have quite a good backlog of these projects that, again, we're excited about. Not only do we have that particular contracting side of the business, we also have construction and other environmental services. And both of those businesses continue to grow in 2023. And if you go back 5 years, we track an operating measure called EBITDA. And EBITDA allows us to get a clear picture of the cash flow generating ability of a business. And we've grown EBITDA of our operating platform for the last 5 years and can believe 2023 and 2024, we will see continued growth.
Thank you, Anthony, so much. And thank you, Brad Fletch, for that question. We do get quite a few questions on our seafoods and our services and our contracting operations. I see Morgan Howard has opened a microphone. Morgan, would you like to add to that?
I thought it was really interesting when you talked about the businesses and how we are sought after. And I think that's a really good point. The Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act set up a situation where businesses were created before there was a product or service. It really was business backwards, right? To this day, 50 years later, we're the only company, the only Native corporation that's not wholly reliant on natural resource extraction or government contracting. I'd be interested if anyone could put in the chat another corporation that is like Sea Alaska, which means we're not relying on those two that the rest of them are, right? We do participate in government contracting, but if the legislation was changed, it would not be devastating to us, right? We would be able to move past it. I think that's significant because what we're doing is we're providing a product or service in the world and we're really good at it, right? That really is looking ahead. We look out several generations. That's saying we've chosen things, in this particular case, businesses aligned around the health of our oceans to be really good at, the best in the world at. And that's how we're going to grow the company. And I think that's exciting. So I'm glad you brought that particular point up earlier.
Thank you very much, Morgan, for reinforcing that. Sea Alaska has had the foresight to be looking ahead to those future generations. And this might even touch on a few of the other questions that we have. And I do apologize, Anthony, you were kind enough to introduce me as Director Hollingstead. For the sake of our shareholders, I am Nicole Hollingstead. My Tlingit names are Cha'akla and Tikruche. I'm Tukdane Ton, originally born and raised in Petersburg, Alaska, one of our 5 landless communities that we are fighting for. And I'm joining this conversation today from the lands of the Dena'ina here in Anchorage. But speaking of our businesses and our exciting approach, we've known that we need to look for ways that we can accelerate our earnings, particularly after our move out of traditional timber harvest. And so we looked to our carbon programs for that. We know that we need to anticipate the falling away of 7I payments, potentially from these large resource companies who may be facing a drop-off of those revenues themselves. And so the fact that we looked to carbon credits, that we are looking to become experts in industries that are not necessarily occupied by other ANCSA corporations, has been part of that specific strategy. And, shareholders are asking in the chat, how will we make up timber payments? How will we make up for 7I? Anthony, is there any more you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, good questions, because we think about that a lot. I'll do the first one in terms of moving away from the old growth harvesting that we did for the bulk of our history. That we have the confidence to make that move because our first 2 carbon projects created $140 million in income for us. And if you go back to probably a decade of harvesting, it outstretched the income from harvesting by a great degree. And we still had land available for a 3rd carbon project. And so what we will be highlighting to shareholders is that we expect our 3rd carbon project to offer an amount of net income that fully offsets what we were receiving from traditional harvesting. So that's one answer. The 7I and more Alaska Native Corps are talking about this because the 2 main sources that I mentioned, Arctic Slope and NANA, one Arctic Slope has an oil field that has been in decline. So it's not always just the price movement that goes up and down. It's also the volume of oil that comes from those developments. And there's a decline in the amount of oil that's coming specifically from Arctic Slope. They may be able to find new sources, but as of now, we just have the expectation that we may see continued decline there. NANA and the Red Dog mine should be stable for the, let's say, next 5 years, but they are forecasting an end of mine life in the 2030s. So they are broadcasting this because they know they send out large amounts of 7I, and they want both regional corporations and village corporations to be prepared for when the end of life of the Red Dog mine comes. I think one way that we've been preparing is adding to our investment funds. And when we put more money in the permanent fund, whatever comes from any decline in 7J, the permanent fund stays a stable source of dividends. When we add to our scholarship endowment, we can give out 1.2 million annually in scholarships, no matter what 7I does in the future. So the investment funds are absolutely one way to future-proof the effect of a decline in 7I. And we will continue to both work with our village corps and other regional corps to continue to plan for this future event. But it is in the 2030, 2032 timeframe that we expect the decline to come forward, but it's worth planning for now.
Absolutely. And that's such a great phrase, future-proof. That's just a really good phrase to keep in mind about how Sealaska approaches its responsibility to our shareholders, to the owners of this corporation, to keep providing those benefits, not just in the form of dividends, as we've talked about, but also in the form that our shareholders tell us are important through our survey tools, our education, our advocacy, our policy, those opportunities for shareholders that we're told over and over again are priorities of our shareholder body. So thank you for mentioning that we did add some funding to the permanent fund. 2 years ago, the board approved a $25 million addition to the body of the permanent fund, and that's again part of that future proofing that Sealaska is being mindful of. We do have a question, and I want to apologize if viewers catch me looking down or shifting from device to device. We're trying to monitor your questions and make sure that we get to them. I think it was Dorothy Nix who was asking about the elders benefit that's built in to ANCSA of receiving a dollar amount once they reach the age of 65. And what happens if an original shareholder does not make it to that age? Regretfully, of course, that means that there is not a payment made. But Anthony, could you just talk a little bit about the Elders Settlement Trust and how, again, we future-proof to make sure that those funds are available, knowing that there is a point at which those original shareholders will not require that payment?
Yes, thank you. So, believe it was the late 80s and early 90s that the Elders Settlement Trust was stood up. And the payment that is being asked about is $20 per original share. And so if you think of, let's just say the average of a original shareholder having 100 shares, when you turn the age of 65, you would get a $2,000 Elder Trust benefit. At that same point that you turn 65, you also get an extra 100 shares of Elder Share Class that gets you an additional amount of permanent fund and operations dividend. So there are two significant Elder benefits, and it does require a shareholder to reach the age of 65. It is meant to be an Elder benefit, and in situations that it's not, we also have a memorial fund that helps families when shareholders pass. That was a new benefit that the board added a few years back. And so, they all add up to hopefully highlighting the priority we have of taking care of our elders.
Thank you for that. Just the ways that Sealaska, again, continues to be mindful of impacts, perform against its responsibility to shareholders, and continue to provide benefits and opportunity for our shareholders, and particularly for our youth. I just wanted to note that there are nearly 330 viewers on today's Lunch and Learn session, which is fantastic attendance. Thank you, shareholders, for joining us, and for keeping in mind that we also have now over 25,000 shareholders around the world. It is a large number of shareholders, and when we talk about benefits and trying to find ways for benefits to reach all of those shareholders, that's always part of our conversation. Morgan, was there more you'd like to add?
Well, I just saw a question by Tia Silva. Hi, Tia. She was asking, will Sealaska open jobs within the state of Alaska for more scientists? She writes in the chat that she has a native environmental science degree, and it's hard finding work with this degree. It would be wonderful to see jobs locally for our shareholders. I agree with her. It would be wonderful to see jobs locally for our shareholders as well. On the board of Sealaska, we would love to hire shareholders who can provide, contribution to Sealaska. Absolutely. And we have the legal right, all things being equal, to have preference for a shareholder in the hiring. It's just a matter of having the positions available. We are a for-profit corporation, so every business we're in has to make a profit. It's the businesses to just locate one in Alaska will not work necessarily. It has to have the right fit. We're constantly looking for those businesses that can be successful, that can be in the places where our shareholders live, therefore providing shareholder employment. We're open-minded about the nature of work today. Remote working really took off since COVID. I think it does work in certain industries and certain positions, and that too, Sealaska is open to. So yeah, moving forward, to answer your question, Tia, we would hope that we would be able to employ very qualified shareholders like yourself. That would be something that would make Sealaska a better company, because we know often shareholder employees are the best employees because they're really passionate about the company they're working for. It's their company. So that is a hope in the future.
Thank you, Morgan. I really appreciate how you highlighted the opportunities that we do have. We've had shareholders in almost all of our contracting companies, working from Los Alamos to California to Washington to other remote sites across the nation. In Alaska specifically, we've had a real focus on workforce development, and not only based off of helping shareholders find jobs at Sea Alaska, but helping shareholders find jobs in any opportunity available to them. So reaching out to our shareholder development team, Tesla Cox and her team, we have many opportunities, especially for environmental sciences, with partner entities. We've worked with the Forest Service to place shareholders into Forest Service roles. Some do have environmental science backgrounds. We'd love to find ways to place shareholders into NOAA. I believe we do have a shareholder working for NOAA right now with a fisheries background. And so, whether it's Sea Alaska or any other good opportunity, we'd like to help you think through that. And Tesla and team would be the ones that can offer additional resources to you.
Thanks, Anthony, for mentioning a few of our folks at Sea Alaska in Juneau that our shareholders can talk with. I just wanted to note, we have such a fantastic body of staff throughout the world. Our dedicated folks here in Juneau. Tesla Cox is a Sea Alaska shareholder, and she's the director of shareholder development, and is working very closely on trying to align shareholders with job opportunities, particularly in the areas of STEM and STEAM and science. So Tia, definitely connect with Tesla. We have Mitch Haldane, who is a shareholder, who is our carbon program manager. Jason Gubataya, who is a shareholder, who is the general manager of Ha'ani LLC, our entire natural resources arm. We've got wonderful shareholders working in our communications division, Matt Carl, Dixie Hutchinson, Tasha Human, and I apologize for those I might be missing, but we just have such a wonderful body of dedicated staff around the world. But our shareholder hire and their focus on shareholder development really deserves the shout out here. So I want to make sure we've got time to answer a few other questions that relate to where we host our shareholder outreach meetings, and questions about trawling. We get questions about trawling fairly often, and I do think it's important to just have this open dialogue with our shareholders about how it's different in Europe and how it's different in Alaska and what those impacts are. I was handed a little note to say that we actually have over 26,000 shareholders at this time. Just before a distribution, we usually get a little bit of a push of enrollments, and we are over 26 now. And so going back to the question, we have seafood interests in Northern Europe, and there are different requirements for trawlers there. Trawlers are not allowed to ocean floor drag. And it's really important to remember that industry has certain qualifications that those who participate in it must follow. Another really interesting difference about European trawl catch is there is no bycatch. And by that, I mean everything that is caught in that net has a market. It has a pricing structure. It has a place for sale. And so there's no lost bycatch in that European trawl. And those distinctions are really important because we do recognize that trawling oftentimes can impact our own Alaska fisheries. And Anthony, would you care to say a few words about that?
No, thank you. I think you captured it when we think of the reasons why the Alaska trawl industry has been in the headlines. It's truly about any ocean floor damage they create, which you mentioned, and more heightened the bycatch that comes with their trawling. The only addition I'll say is that when we think of Alaska trawling, these are truly industrial sized, massive floating processors with hundreds and hundreds of employees on board, trawling and processing. The Norwegian and Iceland trawlers are much more, they're smaller boats, often run by families that have been in the industry for decades. They're not open ocean processors, so they're not the industrial scale size as well. They're more community, family sized vessels that are out there catching just as their family has done for many decades.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Morgan, would you like to add anything?
Not to that subject. I did want to address another question if I could.
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Vicky Mata was referencing a piece I wrote years ago about Sea Alaska that was an op-ed for the Anchorage Daily News. And it's about how dividends can be a poor measure of success. And she was wondering, what did I mean by that? I won't go into too deep, but I'll give you a quick shot on it, which is I've seen, and this happened recently with auto corporations, they will pay dividends out even though they had no profit that year, right? That's what I mean. That's a poor measurement of success, because when you pay out a dividend and it doesn't come from profits, it's actually not a dividend, it's a distribution. Technically, that's the definition. It reminded me of Sea Alaska and how we are today in regard to many of the benefits that shareholders receive come out as expenses and costs to the corporation. So they actually take off the bottom line. And so when you look at Sea Alaska and you're trying to measure us, are we successful? Is the board doing its job? There's a lot of things to look at, because when you see the bottom line, you need to take into consideration that we have money that comes directly out of the bottom line to pay for things such as the Sea Alaska Heritage Institute, right? If that organization did not exist, my opinion is the board would stop everything and make it happen. It's that important to us. It really is that entity which fulfills our mission. It provides the manifestation of our hard work into our culture, our arts, our language. I always think, what will my children and grandchildren say to me today and how I'm doing my job? I think they'll say things like, why didn't you save the language when you had a chance, right? That's what I talk about when I say dividends are a poor measurement of success. A better measurement, and it's more difficult, I will grant you that. A better measurement, though, is how are we having a positive impact on the lives of shareholders for today and those shareholders' children and grandchildren? How are we having a positive impact on our communities so the communities are healthy and healthy children are coming from those communities? Those are tough, those are difficult, but that's where my head is on that piece, and I just wanted to answer that. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you, Morgan, for picking up a question from Vicky and answering it. We have just a few minutes left, so we're going to turn to the question of hosting meetings with communities outside of Alaska. And I'm going to call on Vicky Sobolev in just a moment to talk a little bit more about some of the cultural offerings that we're able to do when we have meetings that are not necessarily related to reporting on our annual report, or that have to set aside time for candidate speeches, or that might be more election focused. The board really wanted to set a priority of creating outreach and reconnecting with our shareholders where they are. We made really great use of our Zoom tool during COVID, and we have kept that as a platform of outreach. This virtual session right now is one of those examples of taking a tool that worked when we couldn't connect, and keeping it going just to add on top of the outreach that we're able to do. So See Alaska has planned events in communities outside of Alaska, so we can reach out to our shareholders there. And that includes some of the meetings that are coming up this fall. And we're able to bring along more cultural components and encourage that engagement in our Alaska Native identity and our culture. And so I'll ask Vicki just to talk a little bit about some of those cultural offerings at these community meetings, and then offer just a few words to close out our session today. It has been a great opportunity to answer questions and visit with shareholders and talk to nearly 350 folks who joined us today. So I'll turn to Vicki to close us out. Ganesh, hala.
Thank you, Nicole. Yes, to talk about some of the cultural opportunities that have been made available at the recent events that we have been having at Sea Alaska for shareholders. The first time that this was offered was in Portland, and it was in March. And at that time, I was able to offer some cedar weaving, and we also had some beadwork offered by Carmelita Estrada, and storytelling, and that was very well received by the Portland shareholders. And then the next event that we had very recently was in Phoenix, and at that event we were able to bring in Doug Chilton, and he worked with shareholders on drawing designs on small paddles and getting those sanded. And I believe they made over 30 small paddles with the shareholders. I worked with shareholders on making cedar bark headbands. We made over 30 headbands for shareholders, and they were very excited to receive that opportunity, having not had that chance before. At that time, I've just been updated that they actually made 60 paddles, which is incredible because there was only 2 hours for shareholders to be able to work on those projects. We also at that time had storytelling, and we had Joe Yates, like I said before, helping people with digital photography. And on the upcoming cultural events that we'll be having, it's going to be again in Los Angeles on November 11th and in Sacramento on November 12th. We also will be having the Sea Alaska Holiday Fair on December 9th, and there will be a holiday fair in Juneau on December 13th in coordination with the Native organizations in Juneau. So thank you very much for joining us today. There will be a recap of today's event published by Sea Alaska, and that will be available on myseaalaska.com, clicking on news and events, and you will be able to find that there. Thank you very much, and it was good to be here today, and I will just turn this over to Dixie at this time. Thank you.
You know, why we're here is because there's a lot of people that are interested in, you know, carrying our culture forward. And, you know, a lot of folks that have an understanding of how, you know, our culture historically, it went from a high point to a really low point. It's been coming back up, and it's really healthy for all of us. You know, we're interested in keeping that ball rolling for the people of the future. we need to know what we have, in order to manage for the future. And so I think there's kind of a first step, find out what we have. We can go out there, once crews are trained up, they can go out there and be working on this over the course of time and catalog the trees that are available.
My name is Jason Gubatayo, and I am the general manager of Ha'ani LLC, which is a subsidiary of Sealaska Corporation that's charged with all of its land management activities. Our mission at HAL is to create the greatest financial, community, and cultural value from our lands. Access to cultural use wood. Historically, Sealaska has been a major contributor in Southeast Alaska for that supply, and we would like to continue that. Before you can make decisions on sustainable harvest, you have to know what you have and kind of generally where it is. And that's been the mission of this cedar recon. And this is something that we are partnering with the United States Forest Service and OVK on. We're going to expand it over several years to include all of our lands, but it's our belief that not only should that be a priority of Sealaska Corporation, but it should also be a priority of all the landowners in Southeast Alaska.